half log on to that so I can follow if anybody's following us. Don't forget to post it in the group.
No, I already did. I already kind of put a post up there. So I gotta let this articulate for a second. But alrighty. So the Bruins lose 5-3 against the Nashville Predators. Was not a good performance. I think considering they just traded Trent Frederick, considering what's on the line for the Bruins to kind of cling on to playoff hopes, that's against a terrible Nashville Predators team. That yeah, they do have some talent on it. That's definitely not the performance you'd like to see. What stood out to you at first? Oh, well, actually, before we go into that, this is the admin from the Boston Bruins Facebook fan page. Hayden, how you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you?
Uh, I could be better after that game. What did you think of that game? What was your main takeaways from that one?
That I finally peaked over aggravation.
Mm,
That was tough to watch. I've tried to hang on to it, but I was told today in a chat that that's just reality that I'm feeling.
yeah.
I don't like reality. Reality's not fun.
So like I understand them losing, the Bruins losing against very good teams because I don't think this roster is that good. I think it's a kind of a bubble team at best, right? So I'm fine with that, especially with pieces like Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy, not being in the lineup. I understand there's going to be a lack of talent there. What struck me so poorly tonight, though, is considering they just made that trade, is just the it's just lackluster effort. I mean, it just looked like they were coasting out there. Defensively, it was absolutely horrific. Their blue line defense was terrible. And even when they tie up that game in the third period, you know, they make it a game. The Bruins just spacing in the neutral zone into their own defensive zone was just horrific. And
They're gapping, and that gapping is something that's taught in high school, so there's
yep.
no excuse for it.
No, it's like with Zadorov. I think there were so many goals late there. I think it was the fourth. No, I think it was might have been the fourth. There was a play that was Zadorov just kind of like was at the top of the face-off circles in the defensive zone and not on the blue line when they were just entering the zone. And just overall, the Bruins just let them get up to get up to speed, not be contested. And like you said, that is stuff you learn in high school. Just general spacing of like, okay, should be a stick half length away. It it was embarrassing. It was just really embarrassing to watch. So it just again, I know McAvoy, Lindholm, those are big misses on the back end, but still, these are NHL level players. It shouldn't be that poor, in my opinion, defensively. You know.
No, there's no excuse for that. I mean, I will go as much as I say they're big boys and it's a business. Trades are part of the business side of it. There is a human
Hmm.
aspect to it. One of the guys that you really like in the locker room, they basically told you he was dead.
Yeah.
They just told you your puppy died today. So there's some human aspect to it,
Yeah.
not getting up for the game. But they didn't lose. They just let the other team win. They
They
did
got
not put in,
yeah.
I just don't know.
They got embarrassed. I mean, that's a pathetic. That is a pathetic loss. That is one of the worst losses of the season, considering what's on the line and the team you're facing. I mean, they made the Nashville Predators look like a bubble team. They made them look good, and
Look like they should have looked this year. There's no
yeah,
reason for Nashville to be this bad either.
fair. I mean, they do have talent on
So
that roster, and it's just they've been abysmal. But it's still a team that's struggled all year. But yet again, another Bruins opponent that looks godly against them. And it's I'm with you, like Hayden. I've been trying to be patient with this team, but the frustration and just the basic hockey IQ mistakes that are happening, it just makes it very, very difficult to watch. I'd be
yeah,
fine if they're out talented, if they're out skilled. That's fine. I get it. They don't have a lot of top end talent offensively, but to just simple mistakes like that cost you games, and you get blown out like that against a very poor team. It sucks to watch.
it's tough. Um,
Yeah.
I, I'm kind of speechless over this one.
I mean, Fire Wagon said so. Montgomery wasn't that bad of a coach, eh? Uh,
Montgomery shot himself out of here on purpose. I'm
yeah.
guaranteeing after the season there'll be an investigation on tampering. I've said it before. I'll say it again.
I think there was more there with Montgomery. I don't think he was gonna be there long term, regardless.
I mean,
Uh,
well, they couldn't come to terms on a contract. I think he wanted long term. They only wanted to give him a few years.
yeah,
But I mean, you had Zadorov come out and say, no, this is not at all the guy that all the other players told me he was. He
really,
acted nothing like they said he did.
yeah.
Yeah. So other players have said he's been a completely different guy or was a completely different guy. So I
You
think
know,
he checked out.
I mean, I think it's hard for me with the whole coaching thing at times to because I mean we saw what happened with Bruce Cassidy. I think he kind of got old after a while. I mean, even Claude Julien, who won the Bruins Stanley Cup, after a while, they kind of changed the voice in the room. Just with
Mhm.
Montgomery, I mean, for the short amount of time he was here, for him to just kind of be like, I don't want to, I don't want to stick it out. Um, it's I'm not overly in love with Sacco. I think it's just kind of a meh hire. It's just a kind of it's an interim guy. It's like when he was with Colorado. It's an interim guy. I don't think he's there long term. I think they're gonna probably get a new bench boss after the season. I'm at least hoping that's the case because I just with Sacco, he doesn't really inspire anything with me. Inspire any type of confidence.
I think with the personnel that they have on the team, ownership and management just expected things to keep flowing the way it does. But to do
Yeah,
that, you got to change. You have to change a system that the rest of the league has figured out.
yeah,
I've said it a bunch of times to you before. Since the system's run its course, teams know exactly what's happening when it's happening.
yeah. I mean, it's.
So
I mean, I mean, even you know what the crazy part is? The Bruins are so vanilla offensively in the offensive zone. It's just other teams are just sitting and waiting, like, oh yeah, that's where they're gonna throw it, and they just cut off lanes. But the Bruins just keep, it's like just banging their head against the wall, expecting different results. Uh, and you're right, some of it is personnel. Go ahead.
even that 5-on-5, they set up like it's a power play, and they stay stagnant and wonder why passes are getting picked off.
Dude.
So
I just there's there should be some like there's just it's just I don't know, just system wise they need a complete overhaul, and I think overall like personnel wise they need to completely change things up at this point. Um,
what do you
it's
mean by that?
I think right now with personnel wise, are you talking about personnel or system?
Are you talking
Uh,
about players as personnel or management
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
personnel?
personnel, like personnel player wise. Like I think the writing's on the wall with this season,
Oh
and
yeah,
I think if you can move, and we've talked about, we'll go this later in the video, but like if you can move certain players and get some type of assets back, I think it's a win. And I don't want to sell the whole team. There is talent on this roster. It's not just there is some very good talent on this roster, but I think if you tweak some things, I'm not saying they're an immediately a Stanley Cup contender next season. It's just I think you get a better product next year. I would like to give some of these AHL guys like Merkulov and I don't know about Lysell because he struggled at the AHL level, but some of these guys a
he's
longer
not going to
look.
be here Friday. Lysel's gone Friday,
Yeah,
so
and Luke, thoughts on Swain's performance and contract? I think Corpy should have gotten the nod tonight.
nothing to do with Swayman tonight.
Yeah, I mean, expect like that. What was that the fifth goal where Riley just bats it out of midair in, and then on the
Oh,
fourth
that
one
was
it was like
pretty.
that was a fantastic play. And then
Yeah,
the backdoor, like Swayman. Listen, he has not played well this season. I don't think that's crazy to say,
he's
but
played well as of late.
as of late, and I wouldn't blame him. Now it's going to be up to Swayman going forward because let's just call it as it's a bad season.
Hmm.
He's got to prove that this is an outlier year for him. and that what we've seen previously is generally what he is. And it's kind of like a make it or break it type thing for him next season. Like, is he actually a guy that can be a bona fide number one, and not just a solid number one, but like towards the top of the league, like a top 10 goalie? Because that's what, when you're signing him on the potential, because you saw the great flashes with him last year. He had a very good playoff series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He played, decent in the next round after that. Is this going to be like, is next year going to be the bounce back, or is this just going to be more of the same? Because I will say with Swayman, he has played better, but his reading of play, like, he just doesn't read the play well. Like, he doesn't anticipate well. It seems like it's like
Yeah,
it'll show those games where, but more often than not, it seems like he's a split second too slow.
I posted in the group the other day that he just has no awareness where he is in the crease. There's
Yeah,
no reason they should be scoring so many short side goals on him.
no, it's and I don't know
And
if I don't know if, oh, go ahead, sorry.
part of that comes from not trusting your D and cheating.
Yep.
So he's pushing off the post before he needs to, expecting a pass that probably should be a pass, but the D folds down to center, so it leaves an open lane, which is fine and good if the D is telling him to take the shooter. Then he can
Right.
square up and do whatever. You can watch them playing. Nobody's talking. The
No.
forwards talk. None of the defensive guys are talking to each other. You can't hear them. Every game you can hear defensemen yelling at each other,
Yeah.
and they just don't seem to be doing it. They just seem like they're going through the motions. They've quit. And unfortunately, it's what you sign up as a fan. Sometimes it happens.
I mean, listen, like I've had some years, like I remember, like you remember this, like the late '90s, early 2000s, like the Bruins were not a good team. They were just not a very good team, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of, we've been spoiled, I'd say, past the last 10 to 15 years. Like, there's been a fairly good, competent team on the ice. Maybe not always a Stanley Cup contender, but a playoff team that's solid, right? But
Yeah.
the problem is that this team just isn't that. And as for the defenseman talking tonight, right? And a genuine question here, because I want your opinion. To me, in my personal opinion, there was only one defenseman on the ice tonight that's a top four pairing quality, and that's Carlo. Outside of that, the rest of them are third pairing guys on other teams. And
Um, I would say Laurie is approaching it.
yeah, he's approaching it, but right now,
And Zadorov is Zadorov.
yeah,
In the playoffs, he'll be fine. But it's just the regular grind of the season. I don't know. I don't know what's his deal. He always plays better in the playoffs.
Zadorov is one of these defensemen because I've followed him quite a bit, with Calgary and then with the Vancouver Canucks. Zadorov's a guy you love to have on your team in a bottom pair because he's physical, he adds that jam to you, and especially in the playoffs, Raku Gudis you saw for the Florida Panthers, he's a guy you hate playing against because he's
Yeah.
gonna play physical, he's gonna lay your head out, like he's just gonna knock you out. You love having those guys on your team, but he's not a top four guy in my opinion. He never has been. You got to have him in the right situation, and I think that can happen here in Boston, right?
He's
If
a 4 or 5,
and
depending
I'll
who
say
he's paired with.
I'll say five. I'll disagree. I've watched him a lot, and he does add value, right? And I'm not gonna say he's a terrible defenseman. It's just if he was a bottom pairing guy with less minutes, I think he'd probably flourish more.
Oh,
Um,
you gotta understand also when Lindholm went down, he got thrust into a spot where he probably
exactly,
shouldn't be. And then McAvoy goes down, and all of a sudden he's on the top pairing.
exactly,
That's
and that's
not his world.
no, exactly. Tito says Ras to replace Saku pipe dreaming, but just for fun. I don't think Derek Tuukka Rask would. I don't know. I don't know how that would go. Tuukka Rask is the head coach. Uh,
No, he said tonight he didn't even know what forechecking involved when they were talking to him. So
um, Yor said too many critical mistakes have been made. Been taken by management. Firing Monty was the biggest one, in my honest opinion. It's
Monty quit. He didn't get fired. He quit.
Yeah, Monty wanted out.
Guarantee it.
It's The only thing I'd say critical of that whole situation, because I did think it was weird, is going with Sacco. I mean, but who else could you really go with? It's
You're you're what, 15 games into the season?
Yeah, it's like there's not like that guy out there, and I know some people said at the time like Quenville, but like that's a whole bunch of baggage with that the Bruins weren't going to
Yeah.
touch. So it's like who's out there that is going to excite you? Like Quenville, Babcock, like neither guy would, neither guy is like necessarily have like they come all with baggage.
And the
It's
other problem with that is you bring in a new coach. He comes with an entire new system a quarter of the way into the season.
Yeah,
You know, Sacco knows this system, even though it's a dead system. It's still a system he knows.
yeah.
And you, people expected Quinville to come in, and all of a sudden, the Bruins could be a completely different team. They'd be worse.
Oh yeah, no, because they would need time to adjust to a new system. It's
Yeah,
it's not just plug and play because
right.
it takes time in the off season to kind of implement these different systems and get players. I do think I would love to see the Bruins bring in somebody in the off season that's a very brilliant, whether it be young, promising offensive coach that could kind of tune up some things offensively because I think there is talent on this roster. It's so vanilla right now and so predictable. It makes it very easy for other teams to lock down the Bruins. You know,
I'm not shocked if you see Sullivan back.
I wouldn't be either. I
He's on his way out the door in Pittsburgh. He's run his course. He's been there, what, 10 years? Something like that.
Yeah, and generally coaches. I mean, that's actually because Sullivan's been one of those guys that's kind of bounced around a little bit, a little tiny bit. But
3 teams. Boston for a year. Where else?
oh god, there
Pittsburgh,
was a few.
obviously.
Yeah, there's Pittsburgh. I'm trying to remember with him. Did he go to the Rangers? I forget if there was a few different teams. I had to look it up, but he's a good coach. I think that would be kind of a good addition.
Yeah, I believe it was
Um,
either the Islanders or the Rangers.
yeah, it was one of those teams.
Yeah, I think it might have been the Island Rangers.
Yannick says, "What are your thoughts about Lorai's future?" I'll let you go first.
Um, I like it. He's surpassed what I thought he was going to be this year.
Yeah,
He's getting a lot more confident. Put a little more meat on him and settle him down a tad bit because he thinks the
yeah,
story crew flying around, which is fine and good, but
right.
you can't do it if you don't have defensive forwards.
Yeah,
So
I like Lorai a lot. I think people are getting on him for all the mistakes, but it's a young defenseman. I mean, when they
same
got
mistake.
him,
It's the same mistakes the old veterans are doing.
exactly, and when the Bruins got him, they understood that there's going to be some ground he's going to have to catch up defensively, right? But there's that offensive upside. And you see
Mhm.
these nice little flashes. He can skate with the puck. He has a very good shot. And the big thing here, like in comparison to a guy like Krug that you mentioned, that was very offensive for the Bruins. He's got size and reach to him. Now you add a few more pounds, a little bit more muscle. I think Lorai would be a very competent top four defender eventually. And one of the silver linings I have of this season when it comes to the Bruins is that with Lorai, he gets experience and he can grow from that and look at the film and kind of build confidence and kind of understand like what he can and cannot do at the NHL level because outside of goaltender, playing defense is one of the is the most difficult position to play in the league. You
Yep.
know?
I mean, no, he's been, in my opinion, probably seventh player.
Yeah,
Him,
yeah,
Geeky.
yeah. Geeky
You know,
and, and good for Geeky. He got on the board tonight. Um, Toil says, "What do y'all think about all the upcoming games? Looks like a tough run."
I said this in the chat group. These are the five that they'll win. You know,
Yeah, it's not.
I don't think they actually will, but
Yeah,
um, I don't think they're going to get blown out like most people are expecting them to. I think tonight was kind of a wake up call to them. A little late, but it may have been a wake up call. The shock of hey, morning guys, we traded Freddie.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to walk into the rink to hear one of your buddies just left. You know.
Yeah, I mean that definitely plays a factor into it. There, like you said, there is a human element here. You
Yeah,
know?
as much as people say, well, they're professionals, they're still human. They still have emotions. You see, Coyle was practically tearing up when he was talking about him. You know,
It's I'm very I'm very pessimistic about the next games. I don't think there'll be blowouts like this. I think they'll try to keep it close. Um, but overall, I don't know. I don't know if the Bruins kind of have enough gas to beat some of these teams, especially with what they currently have on the roster. And kind of speaking about the roster, and because we just mentioned the Frederick trade, uh, what have your thoughts been on the Frederick trade? Did you like the trade? Did you like the return? I mean, overall, do you think that this helps the Bruins in the long term, or do you think it was a bad trade?
well, you got a guy that went from what 20 plus goals last year
Yep.
down to in 30 some odd points, 40 points, down to
Mm-hmm.
15 points.
Yep.
High ankle sprain, probably out for the remainder of the season.
Yep.
And they were able to get a second and then swing retention for a prospect that's going to be very good.
Yep.
A second round pick and a fourth round pick. I think it's outstanding. It's magical.
You know, I, and I'm not gonna name names, but man, there are so many people that just like they said it was a bad trade, whatever, and they believe Trent Frederick adds jam. First off, Frederick can't fight himself out of a fucking wet paper bag. I'm sorry, it's one of the most overrated aspects of his game. This
Hold
season,
on.
right?
Oh. He did jump Tanev in his first game.
Oh,
So,
yo, I mean, we're gonna hold on to that. It's just,
and,
to
you know,
me, with
and he kept up cutting him while he still had his stick in his hand. But Tanev still had his stick. Wasn't defending himself. He just kept wailing on him. So he's the cool Buster Bruin guy now.
listen, I appreciate what Frederick brought. I thought he was kind of just a third line guy at best. At one point, I was like, man, I don't know if this guy's going to be a fourth line guy, right? But he paved out a decent NHL spot for himself. Other teams interested. I mean, the Oilers brought him in, hoping that when he gets healthy and they get into the playoffs, he can add some jam in their bottom six, right? So I'm not saying he has no value, but he had a good year last year. It's a contract year this year. He's played terrible, right? Let's not sugarcoat it. He's not played good. And, while yes, maybe he can get his face punched in and he gets 5-minute penalties, right? Yeah, maybe you bring a little bit of energy in that regard, but to get a second round pick for a guy that's on an expiring deal you're most likely not going to retain is a fantastic trade. And then Max Jones is included in that, who was signed in the offseason, who really didn't flourish with the Bruins. I know he got injured and all that, but didn't kind of pave out a role for him on the NHL lineup. You get a fourth rounder for him, and the guy that they brought in, Wayner, like, if you look at all the scouting reports, a lot of the Oilers people. What's that?
Maximus.
Maximus. He's looked good. He's looked good, but the one thing that people want to say is like, oh, he's a seventh round pick. I'm like, even if he becomes nothing at the NHL level, you dealt expiring assets for future assets. That's a great trade.
Little secret. He was slated to start in Edmonton in the beginning of the season. He had an injury. He got set back a little bit, and he gets stuck in the A because they were doing okay defensively.
Yep.
So he was slated to be on their opening night roster. So that's pretty okay for a seventh rounder, if you ask me.
That's fantastic. If you have a guy, and some people can criticize, well, the Oilers, the defensive depth can be a little bit suspect. But I mean, if you have a seventh round pick coming in there and impressing guys at that level, I'll take it. That's a good sign. I mean, there's never too much defensive depth you can have in your system, in my opinion. Right? Like just.
And I guess he's compared to a Carlo with a little bit of mean.
And so, like, I like the trade. So I think we're in agreement. We both like that trade.
Absolutely.
And Don Sweeney gets a lot of flack, and I get that. And I swear to God, if I hear one more, well, in 2025, in those 3 picks, again, it's been 10 years. Let it
It's
die. It's
that's
been 10 years.
2015. You mean 15, not 25?
No, I'm sorry. I'm saying it's 2025 now. It's 2015. It's been 10 years. Like, it's going to be 10 years this upcoming draft. Like, let it go. It
And
happened.
and all three of those players are NHL players, just elsewhere, unfortunately.
Is Sessionin, is he actually still
Oh
in the league?
no, he's in
No.
Europe.
Yeah, he didn't really pan out. But Zaboral, I mean, I thought he was actually turning around at one point, but then it kind of dipped. But I
Yeah,
mean, to Jake DeBrusk, I mean, hey, I mean, he's a quality player. Quality.
yeah, and well, he took the abuse as long as he could and said, "Nope, I'm gone." That's
So
what fans don't get. These guys feel the abuse as much as they say, "Oh, I don't read social media." They read social media. People say shit to them on the streets. People
yeah,
bark things at them when they're walking by them. I wouldn't want to play here either half the time.
yeah,
I've been
no,
in the
it's
stand. I've been at games and I've heard such horrible things. Really bad things thrown at PK Subban. Some
yeah,
embarrassing bad things yelled at him.
yeah. I mean, it's
So
yeah,
there's a lot of players that don't want to play here just because of the fan base.
yeah,
Might be the greatest hockey town, but still douchebags.
yeah. I mean, there's douchebags everywhere, but there is some
Mhm.
guys that go over the top with it,
A lot
100%.
of, but a lot of cities know the people know the limits.
Yeah,
Like, don't go up to the guy at the restaurant, sit next to him, and start chatting hockey with him. He doesn't want to talk to you. He's out with his wife or kids or something. Here,
yeah,
they just mob the people.
yeah.
Not not
That is a little disrespectful. Like
not
just
so much down not so much down in the north end. They walk around freely down there. Chara and Ference Wood. I know Coyle just wanders around and nobody bothers him,
right,
but a lot of the other guys get bugged a lot.
which is weird. I think like just say hi, nod, or whatever. But these guys are
My,
human beings too.
my favorite complaint is people that be like, "Oh, so and so is such a jerk. He wouldn't sign an autograph." Well, yeah, because he's pushing his kid on a swing.
Yeah, I know.
Shut up, and go away. No, we had
Oh,
a
shit.
couple of years ago. Somebody went to the All Star game and Pasternak wouldn't sign something,
Yeah,
and they're furious. And it turned out he doesn't sign too much of anything because, especially for adults, because it just turns around and he sees it on eBay.
I don't blame him though. I
So
generally,
no, not at all.
I don't blame him. I mean, these players aren't entitled to give you shit.
Yeah, a
Sorry,
lot of them sign for kids, but they're not gonna. They don't sign for a lot of adults anymore.
I don't blame them because it's all
So
about getting that money.
mhm.
So after that rough performance, there's obviously going to be other moves that Don Sweeney tries to pull off here. Potential Bruins being traded. Who do you believe is out the door next?
Rizzo,
Yeah,
he's only going for a fourth or a fifth round pick.
but I think that's a good. I think for a guy that was an ECHL, AHL guy, like mind you,
Again,
I know.
awesome story,
Yeah,
awesome story. Cool, kind of like Tim Thomas. Yay for him. You did something pretty good in the NHL once, and then you sucked.
yeah.
What are you gonna do?
No, I think, but I think getting a fourth round pick would be a success for him. Like that'd be a good return.
Yeah,
Because
I believe he was an undrafted free agent, so getting anything
yep,
for him is a good thing.
agreed. And whether it was a fifth round or a sixth round pick, I think it's
Yeah,
Brazil has a fit at the NHL on some teams, but I will say like I love the story like you, but he's just so slow, and
he cannot
it's
play. He can't play on a run and gun. So he's Edmonton. He's out. Minnesota. He's out.
yeah,
He'd fit good in Florida.
he would.
Maybe Tampa now. The Rangers got fast again.
Yeah, the Rangers are a little bit
Islanders.
faster.
You know,
Islanders, you could see.
yeah, teams like that. But to send him to a team with a bunch of young kids like Ottawa, it's never going to happen. The
No,
Ducks aren't going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah put a bid down.
might as well.
Utah's got a 2001 draft picks to give away. So
Yeah.
they've got literally have like 50 draft picks. It's absurd.
And that for the Bruins, I think if you could get anything for him, that'd be good. Is there any type of other is there any other player? I know Brandon Carlo has been in some rumors. I think that would be a mistake. I think if you deal Carlo, that's a mistake. I think that with Hampus Lindholm healthy, Charlie McAvoy healthy, and Carlo, that's good defenseman to have in your top four. You could have Lori in there at like next season, and then you kind of let things grow. I want the Bruins to move certain pieces to kind of like get futures, but at the same time, Carlo, while yes, he's maybe not like the fighter or the big brawler that some people want him to be, or big hitter at his size, he's a
Carlo
quality
can fight.
defenseman.
Carlo can fight. He's not a guy to piss off.
I don't want him to fight though with his concussion history.
Well, that's why he doesn't. But he's had a few that he can throw. But see, it's tough because you get the business side of it. Carlos get 2 years at 4.1, an amazing contract. That's a number one draft pick. Not number one. It's a first round draft pick.
Oh, easily. If you trade Carlo, that's a first rounder. Like that, they'd make no. Especially if a team really needs defense. Like defense is hard to come by. Carlos. Why do you think so many people are interested in him? Even though a lot of Bruins fans think he's dog shit, or not a lot, but some, right? I'm like,
a lot.
It's like you wouldn't have all these other GMs being like, oh, he's available. Well, we'll give you a first. Like I believe Carlo would easily get a first. He's a effective defenseman, takes away time and space. Is he gonna ever win a Norris? No, but he doesn't put up the offensive numbers to win a Norris. But he's good. I mean, most teams would love to have him.
Did you see her husband's going to be an Oilers fan now?
Yeah. Her husband's. I mean, listen. So if this was a funny question, but if Freddie goes on a scoring tear in the playoffs, you get in a Freddie Oilers jersey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll get a Freddie Oilers jersey.
What other Bruins you could see potentially being moved? I made a video on Corpuscello, but what other names you think would be potentially moved?
Corpy would be a good one to move, but I don't think they'd be able to.
Yeah.
He's right on that fringe of being a really, really good backup and just a mediocre backup.
Right.
It's good. It depends on the defense. If the team's a very good defensive structure.
Right.
See, who else would I see going? I don't see Geeky, especially after tonight scoring 20. He just earned himself a new contract. So
Yannick asked, would you trade Marchand?
No, because he's got a concussion. He's off the trade block.
Yeah.
So, would I though? He'd have to say yes.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys you have to ask. Like he'd have to approve it if you dealt him.
I'm not sure he brings the king's ransom that everybody thinks he does.
No.
But I mean, what did we have to give up for Mark Recchi?
Not much.
Or did we sign him in free agency?
No, I think we acquired him via trade, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think it was a crazy ass. Like Marchand, I love Marshy, but he's regressed. So I don't think you're gonna get like some people. I did see this. Oh, like a second round pick.
That's why I'm using Recchi as an example. He was slow as molasses too, but he had something and he made something work with the team.
He did.
Pat Maroon would have if Minnesota didn't lie on how injured he actually was.
Yeah.
So
Christian says Sweeney needs to go.
No. I'll say it again.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't with Sweeney, and I think he gets a lot of unfair blame, and people, like I said, they cling on to that 2015 NHL draft, which I'm sorry, one of those guys became a fringe all-star type guy for one season, but he's a good second line player, DeBrusque, right? And the draft can be a crapshoot, and you'll see a lot of first round picks never even make it to the NHL. So
A
to
lot of
me,
Sweeney's draft picks are everyday NHLers right now.
correct.
Maybe not here because they didn't work the system. They asked to be traded because they weren't getting up here. Because there's a logjam of core members. Now, you got to figure the average amount of first rounders that see 100 plus games is 10%,
Yeah,
if that. Average amount of, I think it's 25% throughout the whole draft see 100 games.
yeah.
Out of how many players is that? 500?
Oh yeah, like a ton. Yeah, like a ton of.
310? So for him to have two players in each draft that are everyday players, that's pretty good drafting record to me. And I got to explain this because I type it out all the time, and some of these people aren't in the group. Sweeney doesn't make these decisions. There's 30 people sitting in that room. They come to a consensus. They actually raise hands and votes. Okay, he ultimately makes the final decision, but at this 27 people saying, no, we want Tom Johnson, he's not going to go, no, we're going with Luke.
Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't make all these decisions by himself.
No, it's a whole. It's a whole collective.
There's 30 people in that room. So
I think where some people get frustrated is they see a lack of probably top 6 talent in some drafts, but I would have to say like the recent drafts you have to kind of let it just play out because they're too young, right? Like Dean Letourneau is a freshman at Boston College, and we'll see how that eventually pans out. But you got him because he's huge. He's a massive, massive guy, and you're hoping
giant defenseman in PC.
Yep, and there
is a bone of contention for me.
There is solid draft. There is solid prospects in the system. I don't think there's a lot of top end prospects. I would say that's fine to say, but I do believe though if this is the complaint I have with people though. They complain about Sweeney not like drafting and not getting enough prospects, but then when he makes a move to get more draft capital to get more prospects, they criticize him for it.
Yeah, a nobody prospect. You can't even pronounce the guy's name. How do you know he's a nothing prospect?
You never even seen him play.
Yeah, a lot of guys I don't know, but I'll go do an hour of research on them before I start talking about them.
Yeah,
and scouting reports and everything. So,
and I mean, again, I know 7th round pick. That's everyone wants to mention, but like the Wayner kid, like when you looked into the reports, I mean, it was all good. I mean, I'd be excited to get more guys in the system, but I mean, if I think, and it's actually Yannick asked this, any thought about trading Coyle? Seems like a good fit for Colorado, Dallas, or Florida.
I could see him going back to Minnesota. I could see him going to Colorado. Florida, no. He'd fit very well in Toronto. Would never happen, but he would fit very well in Toronto.
Like with Coyle, it kind of comes down to because he has a full no movement, right? With Coyle, I believe he has. I believe he has a full no movement clause.
Can you Google it?
Too. Yeah, I'm gonna check on Puckpedia right now. Right. So, I think it just that kind of comes down to it. Would he want to be leaving his team that you grew up watching? Coyle, he has cannot be traded. Yeah, is a full no movement clause. Oh, he has an 8-team no trade list for this year.
Yeah,
and
I guarantee those are all Canada.
3-team for next year. All Canada.
No, this is a conversation that came up earlier. The taxes for players in Canada is outrageous. Then they have people forget if you go to Massachusetts and play a game, you have to pay taxes for that game in Massachusetts. You go play in Colorado, you have to pay the income tax in Colorado for that game. Yeah. So this $1 million contract, after paying everything, comes down to like $400,000
Yeah.
after paying taxes and lawyers and agents and all this crap.
Still
So
good money, but you lose a lot in taxes.
I wouldn't complain, but I
Yeah.
mean, if anybody's in Canada, what's the tax rate in Canada?
Uh, quite high, if I remember correctly.
It's 33.3% here,
Yeah.
something like that.
Christian says maybe it's not Sweeney himself, but the Bruins organization has messed up in free agency, signing not great contracts like Zadorov and Elias, and who he's let go in the last 2 years. I like the thing is right. I would kind of counter that. Zadorov and Elias Lindholm were the gems of the free agency market, and when you
They're
acquired them,
the
right, like
top two free agents.
that was a good sign that you're kind of trying to, you're trying to build for like make a playoff team, get to the next hump. And I thought, you know, I think Elias Lindholm next year, and if they can kind of get a system that actually he's used to running, I think you can see a little bit more offensive punch there. But to me, I think it's a contract that's still a little bit early to say, oh, he's a terrible player. Like if you look at the history of him, he's a solid producer. He's good defensively, and maybe yeah, he's not Patrice Bergeron, but not everyone's going to be Patrice Bergeron. That's just not how it
He's
works.
also he's also the main focus of that line, so he gets doubled up a lot.
Yeah.
So they
Um,
collapse on him constantly. So,
I
but
mean, it has.
that goes back to me saying about the system. You can't bring a coach in with a brand new system. Well, a player coming into a new system too. Granted, he's been here 6 months playing.
Yeah.
It's still tough.
And it's
Next
just
year,
yeah.
completely different animal.
And that's the thing. Like he comes in, you get him like a new coach, maybe a new system that kind of like a little bit more up tempo for a guy like Lindholm. You could see a completely different version of him.
Mhm.
Christian asks, "Do you
He's-
believe the Bruins have a chance to get Ranton?" That would be a mistake.
no,
That would be that like first off, I don't think Carolina does it. Carolina made a mistake dealing Martin Necas, a guy that they had control on over for another year. I think
yep,
Rantanen is a very solid player. I think if the
selfish.
Bru- I think the Bruins trade him. If they trade for him, they better not give up much for him because I
No,
don't think he signs long term.
well, that's the problem. Wherever he goes, he wants to sign a friggin' max deal.
Yeah,
So that's the problem. Which,
and
if I was him, I would say send me to Utah. That would
yeah,
be
with
my
some of,
pick.
I mean,
Because
especially with the young players they have over there, it could be a good
I
fit.
told everybody last year that the Yotes were going to be in the playoffs. Everybody told me to shut up. Look at me now.
No, I mean the Yotes had a bunch of good young prospects. It was just going to take time, you know.
And the
Uh,
time has come. I believe they're in the playoffs as of right now.
so it's to me, as for Rantanen, I think that'd be a mistake. 'Cause I don't think he resigns in Boston. I
No,
think if I think
they couldn't afford it.
personally, my opinion in this, I think Rantanen's best option would be to take a little bit less money and go back to Colorado. Personally, I don't think he does that, but when you go from playing with the second best player in the world to what you're dealing with in Carolina, yeah, you're going to see a little bit of a drop off. So
I mean, from what I understand, they offered him a hell of a deal where
they
he
did,
was the highest paid.
which is crazy
And
because
he said no.
McKinnon's
So,
a better player. You know.
mhm.
Um. So let's see. I'm
I don't know if that answers
Canadian.
the question.
13 sales tax. Every province west of me is 5%. West is 15. Um. Eeyore says, "What recent
No,
trades?" Good.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say no. We meant what's the income tax, not the
Yeah,
sales
income
tax.
tax. Yeah.
Because
Um.
here we have to pay 33% on every dollar
Yeah.
for our paychecks. So anyway, sorry, you were.
Uh. No worries. Which recent trades made by the Bruins do you wish they hadn't? Which hadn't happened?
Hathaway
Yeah.
that sent a first round pick, and we knew immediately he wasn't staying. It may be Orloff too, because he was very vocal that he wasn't going to be staying right from the jump.
Yeah. I mean,
But
kind
both of those
of.
guys knew they weren't staying.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and Orloff was kind of a mixed bag. I think he was okay, but he was a mixed bag when we had him. Um, I mean, yeah, probably there. Trying to really think here, kind of like I'm actually going back in some of the trade history. But you know what's
Rakowski.
great? You know what? I know. I understood why they did it. Like, Tyler Bertuzzi, because they weren't able to retain him. That would probably be in the conversation as well. But they were, but
Yeah,
they're
but
like if you. I'm
that
saying
wasn't their fault.
hindsight.
That was
Yeah, like
that,
I'm saying hindsight. You know.
that's not their fault. That's him thinking he was a $10 million player and ended up playing for $1 million.
I know.
You
It
know,
was.
he came back. He came back to the Bruins, and Sweeney told him to pound sand.
That's funny.
And he came back around.
So kind of. I think for me, if they could move a guy like Coyle, fine, because he's got 1 year left on his deal. If they could, move some pieces, I just don't want them to fire sale everything, right? I mean, shit. I saw somebody in the group talk about trading Pasternak, which I'm like, why? Why would you trade Pasternak? But, well, he can
You get
frustrate some people, but come on.
13 first-round picks, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I know, right? Like, I would only trade Pasta if I'm getting the first overall pick and like other first round picks
So
too, because it's a bona fide superstar. So, but overall,
I
I
can't.
mean,
I can't think of any of the bad trades.
I can't really either. And do you think there's anyone else the Bruins can move, or do you think that's pretty much it?
Kopech's probably gone.
Yeah. What would you
Um,
really even get for him though?
Fourth round.
Yeah.
You know, Mrs. Beecher, I hope you're not watching this. I don't think Johnny goes anyplace.
Yeah.
But I was I was talking to somebody today, and I explained to them that every team wants a good fourth liner. They've somebody that can check, back check, forecheck, play defense, and score the occasional goal. That's what fourth liners are for.
Yeah.
If you get 7, 10 goals as a fourth liner, it's an excellent season.
And he's got good wheels, like
Oh,
very,
yeah,
like
and I
I
don't think
I think
Beecher's going anyplace. But
I think there could be. I've grown on Beecher has grown on me over the last couple seasons. I think there could be a little bit more there offensively. Um,
he'll be a third line center.
yeah, I think
And once he bumps lines, he'll get a little more stat sheet notifications.
yeah because they'll be playing with a little bit higher end wingers.
Yeah,
Um, Yannick asks, "What's the value of Corpusello in your opinion?" It's it wouldn't be that high. I mean, maybe
fourth, fifth.
yeah, like a fourth or fifth. Because I mean, with Corpusello, sorry, with Olmark, you saw what the trade was there. Like Corpusello is just kind of he's as a sub 900 save percentage.
There's a
He
bad
is what he
trade.
is. What's
There's a
that?
bad trade.
What?
The Allmark trade.
Oh yeah, that was a terrible trade. Looking back on it,
Not,
like that.
not. I understand it, but not excited about the return.
No, I think the problem too is that, and listen, I like Kaslik for a fourth line guy. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but you didn't get enough, and it kind of hinges on the fact of what Dean Letourneau turns into. If Dean Letourneau is just a first round guy that doesn't really become anything, like it just makes the trade look even worse. But let's say Dean Letourneau becomes a solid player, it's like makes the deal a little bit more palatable. But you know, it's yeah, that's not a great trade in my opinion, because I think when Olmark's on his game and he showed it in Buffalo, he can be successful outside the Bruins system.
Mhm.
And I'll ask this: Jeremy Swayman. We have seen a lot of people talk about him, wanting to move him, get rid of him. I think there is a potential that Jeremy Swayman could be the next Andrew Raycroft, where he has a good year and then he just kind of falls off the map. No offense to Razor, but that's kind of what happened with him. Uh, I just don't think anybody bites on Swayman. And if they do bite, the Bruins are going to have to retain a ton of salary.
50% probably.
Yeah.
I mean, his contract isn't all that bad with in the next 3 years with all the jumps that are going to happen. So that in 2 years, that dumps down to like a $6 million contract. And then Swayman looks silly for making a stink about it and being the second or third paid highest goalie. Well, now you're just paid average.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I don't think they move him just because they just gave him a contract. And it would shock me.
There's one or two things that happens. Either he doesn't go, and so Sweeney can save face and say, I did the right thing. Or they trade him so Sweeney can say, F you, I was right.
Yeah. But then it kind of leaves the Bruins in a situation they have no goalie. And as... No, Jesus Christ. Listen, when it comes to Bussy, however you want to pronunciate it, Michael DiPietro has been the far better goaltender in that. So, and I think Michael DiPietro could be because people forget he was on Team Canada and juniors, he was their goaltender. Mm-hmm. He had a very high pedigree. I think Michael DiPietro could have the makings of a very solid, maybe even starter goalie at the NHL level. But
he's absolutely a starter.
I just think overall, outside of DiPietro, you'd want to kind of have a decent tandem with another guy that has some NHL games. I actually think this. I'm going to try to look on the bright side here because I'm not trying to be so negative. Maybe getting a guy like DiPietro who has so much talent could maybe push Swayman. I mean, that's a theory, right? If you can get rid of Korpisalo, maybe they push him.
Have to move Corpy at that point. Corpy's got 3 years.
Yeah, but I think they could make it.
This.
I think he has 2 more years on his deal after this. I'll actually kind of look it up now, but I think they could move Korpisalo. It just kind of comes down to, oh my God, actually 1, 2, 3. Ooh, yeah, he's got 3 years after this season.
Yeah,
and it's $3 million though. It's $3 million.
So, there's already $1 million being retained on him,
right?
Because his contract's $4 million, so we get 3. So we'd have to retain 1.5 to move him.
I think the Bruins, if they could get I wouldn't want them to retain. Lender. Yeah, I wouldn't want them to retain much. I mean, it would kind of have to be the right situation. But I mean, if they had to retain $1 million, I just say bite the bullet and deal and make space for your DiPietro at the NHL level. Give him a shot. Yeah. And I don't know if I'd want to. If they did move Korpisalo, obviously that's what they had to do. Ideally, and probably more difficult in the offseason. I think I wouldn't want to get DiPietro shelled behind this poor defensive Bruins team. So
that's the other side of it.
That's the one worry I'd have.
But this team also does give credence to the conspiracy theory that they like Korpisalo better because they play better in front of him. Because sadly, they kind of do.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a culture switch in that locker room. I think kind of getting some guys out, getting some fresh faces, might be a good thing. So, I think some players have gotten it just happens, right? Exactly, complacent because they've been there for so long. I think changing up the room is needed. And I'm not gonna probably be popular with some Bruins fans when I say this. I don't even know if I want to bring back Marchand back next year. I think they do.
Problem with that is my assumption only is that he wants 3 years. They want to do year by year.
Yeah.
They don't want to give him 3 years. I mean, he's taken 2 steps back this year from what he was last year.
I mean,
And yes, he's a trooper. He's a good soldier. He's a warrior. He's played injured and injured and injured. But at the same time, you're losing it. It's just what it is.
Christian says at least we have the Celtics.
Who are the Celtics?
uh, the Boston Celtics. At least we have them. We're gonna win back to back. Oh, that's funny.
No idea.
But for me, I'm kind of at the point with the Bruins that I wouldn't mind them just. I don't mind if the Bruins are just kind of not good to the end of the season. Like, I think they're currently sitting at the 11th in the draft order right now. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if this Bruins team sucks on the back end and it just increases the odds of being in the lottery and maybe getting a higher draft pick. I don't think that's a bad thing.
So right now they got the 11th, the 43rd, and the 44th.
Correct.
Plus whatever comes in the 12th round or whatever. I mean, a top 11 pick, but the problem with that is after, say, 7, you're really into the second round. After the 7th pick, it's really second-tier players. In most drafts. There's a couple of that are stacked. This year is not stacked.
No, it's not stacked. But I'm saying though is like if they go on a losing spree here and they could get a top 7 pick, right? It's not the worst thing in the world. Now, personally, I want the team to win. I'm just saying if things go in a very wrong direction, which it could, the silver lining in that is maybe the Bruins get a higher draft pick and they could get a blue chip prospect that maybe not next year, but in a couple of years could be a quality, depending on forward defense, maybe a quality second line type guy or a quality like top 4 pairing type guy. Try to look at it in some positive direction if the Bruins if the wheels completely fall off the wagon here,
Well, this is where people get confused and don't understand it sometimes. The difference between AHL and NHL is huge.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is a huge disparity, or whatever the hell the word is. And goalies can come into it. Defensive players typically can make the jump pretty okay. Forwards, not so much. So even if you draft a forward number 7, let's say even number 5, unless he's Connor McDavid or friggin' what's his face from Chicago that ain't done shit this year.
Oh, Bedard.
Oh, what a little winky he is. That was probably the wrong expression to use, but whatever.
So this is how I look at it. I agree. So, for example, right, you had guys like Ray Bork's son, Chris Bork, light it up in the AHL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, light it up was brilliant. I remember him winning the P Bruins. He was a power play specialist, and he was putting up, like, over point per game point totals at the AHL level. But then when he come to the NHL level, and I would argue, I think if he went to the right situation, I think he could have been a solid NHL level player. But, you go from
lost.
What's that?
He was lost.
Well, like, he would have played KHL successful, AHL successful. I just think, like, there is that massive gap between the NHL, AHL that sometimes for some players, it just takes them a little bit of time to adjust. Sometimes for other players, they can't play at that level. That's not to insult them, but that's just what it is.
Then you get people like McAvoy that just somehow or another jump from NCAA to the NHL.
And that is a rarity. That is not normal.
In the playoffs, mind you.
Like that is not normal. It is generally not normal.
I don't remember them being that desperate that they had to do that either.
No, he just was really good. I mean, at that time, we still had Boychuk, right, and all that. Was that?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like we still had like a really good decor. So it was the guy he looked good. And
but what I was getting at, is there's a huge variance between AHL and NHL. Not every top 5 pick can do what Bedard has done. They're not going to jump into the season and be like, "Oh, they had to do it for Chicago had to do it for PR to sell tickets." They put it in the AHL, they're going to sell 50 tickets a night.
and that's the thing, right? I think overall, I think patience is the big key virtue here with prospects.
Mhm.
Outside of those elite guys like Celebrini, who's had a very good year. I mean, even in that same draft was a Will Smith. I mean, it took him some time to kind of get really going. It takes time with some of these guys, and some guys might need a season or two down the AHL, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and that's normal because it's a different speed, it's a different game altogether, and even when you go from the AHL to NHL, not everybody's going to immediately pop off the page. It's going to take an adjustment period. That's the one silver lining is I'm hoping a guy like Merkulov. I'm not saying he's going to be a lead or anything. I'm hoping a guy like Merkulov, you get some more games, you get some more comfort level at the NHL level. I'm hoping he can at least be adequate third line type produce guy.
he is not afraid to shoot.
Which I like.
Oh my
You know,
God, he can flick that little sucker around too.
well that's what with the P Bruins he does a pretty solid one timer. I think that
Yeah,
it's funny, right? Because a lot of people talk about Frank Vetrano and the mistake of getting rid of him and yada yada yada. But people forget at the time, like Vetrano, people were being very impatient with Vetrano when he was here. When I kind of remember that at the time, I was like, some people, oh man, he's got to be a little bit better, better. Sometimes it just takes these players a couple seasons to kind of get used to the NHL pace. And, I'm not saying Vetrano's like a bona fide all star, but hey, he's turned into a solid player.
he's an everyday good player. But people also forget for how many years did the Bruins have a core where there was
Oh
no
yeah,
room
a
for
really
there
good
was no
core.
room for advancement.
Mm.
So I mean that's why a lot of these guys get traded away.
Yeah,
I mean you take number one draft picks and you got to trade them away because they're just wasting away. They're going into free agency or whatever, and you don't see a path for them for 10 years or five
yeah.
years, whatever it may be.
But I appreciate you popping in Fallout. Um, I think it will be interesting to see how the trade deadline plays out for the Bees, who they move, who stays, and even if some players stay, I still expect some moves in the offseason. This is going to be a true. You're hoping it's kind of a rebuild on the go, but this could be a true rebuild here for the Bees.
If
And
I if I read it correctly, Sweeney said something to the effect of, "We are not chasing unrestricted our unrestricted free agents. They have to come up. They have to come to us with the proper offer."
yeah,
So theoretically, all the UFAs are gone at the end of
yeah.
the year. So minus Marchand.
I think the one interesting thing for me going forward is to see how some of these guys that will be given a bigger look now at the NHL level if more moves get dealt is who impacts. I mean, I don't know the exact upcoming unrestricted UFAs that are coming up here off the top of my dome.
Six of them.
Yeah, like I'm not exactly sure right off the top of my head. I can actually look now, but
They're minor names. Well, not minor, but they're pretty minor names.
yeah, there's nobody like that's gonna come in and be crazy. Well, I mean, you got Marner, right? Then Rantanen, but then I'm gonna go
Oh, I
by
thought you
cap.
meant for. I thought you meant for us.
Oh, right. No, I meant over league wide. Because like maybe the Bruins, some people could say, oh, they can make a splash. I mean, John Tavares is up after this deal. I don't, I think he probably just takes a sweetheart deal to stay in Toronto. Um, Rantanen, Brett Burns, Orlov, Ekblad, Provorov, Brock Besser. Brock Besser is an interesting one. Uh, Claude Giroux, who's kind of dipped a bit this year, but yeah, I mean, there's nobody here in the upcoming UFAs that I would say are probably attainable for the Bruins. Did did Granlund get extended? Actually, did he get extended by?
I did not see.
I don't think I'm looking at it now. No, he didn't get extended. I mean, maybe that's a guy with Dallas. Like, I mean, Dallas acquired from San Jose. Maybe that's a guy you could try to acquire. Um,
All right. So our UFAs are Marchand, Cole Kepke, Justin Brizeau, Waterstrom, Witherspoon, and that's it. Then next year it's Peak, Osterley, Vial, Geeky's a UFA. Oh, so they have to sign him to year because he's an RFA this year and a UFA next year. So, yeah, I mean,
pop this up on screen actually.
We got a lot of numbers coming off the books.
Yeah, I
over
think
the next couple of years.
So this is the thing, right? Is currently sorry about all the ads. I'm gonna zoom this in a little bit so people actually.
And yes, Bertuzzi was like a muppet.
So yeah, Brad Marchand, and then Geeky's RFA, Beecher's RFA, Merkulov's RFA. We'll see how that goes. Kepke, Brazeau, and then Witherspoon. So I mean, out of those guys, I mean, who would you want them retain? If you could get them retain somebody,
Doesn't really matter.
Would you want Brad Marchand back?
Depends on the deal.
I think. Would you pay him $6 million again?
If he's doing a 1 year at a time, yes. If he wants a 3-year contract, he's going to take a pay cut.
Yeah, like that's okay. Let's say Brad Marchand was like, all right, I want term, right? If Marchand wanted 3 years, $4 million, would you do it?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's no problem. Plus, and I throw some bonuses in for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
To make up the other two. Yeah, I do that and give him deferred signing bonuses.
Yeah. DC says thoughts on Federer trade. We already kind of covered it, but I think we both.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, we thought it was both a good move. Very good move, honestly. Geeky, what do you think Geeky gets as an RFA?
What's he at now?
He's at $2 million. So like, what would you?
He's jumping at 2.75 now. And then, depending on his year after that, he'll probably get 4.5.
Which is, I mean, for what he's shown, man, that's not bad. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what DeBrusque got.
Yeah.
So, DeBrusque could be a comp, I would assume.
I mean, and he's he's kind of coming to his own. And there's, he could score 25 plus goals this year before the end, before it all shakes out. I mean, if he gets red hot, maybe 30, but it's, he's been very good. Kepke, I think, is gone. Brazeau gone. Would you bring back Witherspoon?
I do like him because he reminds me of Grizzlick. But there's kind of a log jam starting to build up in the defensive side. Down in Providence.
Yeah.
Because you get a couple of kids coming out of college that are big defensemen. You got the Maximus Rar, which I would not be surprised to see this year for a couple of games.
Yeah.
Definitely next year. I assume he's going to be in. Because we don't know what's going to happen with Hampus. He may not heal from this.
Yeah, and that could be very bad long term.
They screwed it up the first time trying to let it heal. And then he was skating and blew up again. So, from what I understand, they surgically fixed his kneecap.
I'm hoping he takes his time. You know what I mean? But you're right though. There could be a possibility that even with all the time and the heal in the world, he just might not be able to be at the NHL level. I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case, like knock on wood, but that is a potential there.
I mean, Cam Neely had a simple knee injury and
ended his career.
It ended his career.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. I mean, he played a couple more years,
but he wasn't the same guy.
No.
So,
but luckily, that's a structural damage, not muscle ligaments. But when you break your kneecap, typically patella tendons or something goes with it.
Right.
So I'm surprised that supposedly they didn't do surgery to begin with. They wanted to see if they could rehab it.
Right.
If you have a fractured kneecap, typically they at least put a plate in, and they didn't the first time around, I guess. So now
Really?
they went in and redid it. So that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding of it. I mean, I
You
fractured
know,
my patella plateau, which is the big part of your shin bone,
hmm
the ball on the top of your shin bone. I fractured just the ball, and oh my
ooh,
god, did that hurt! Oh,
ooh.
tripped over a rock. It was awesome, but
Oh,
uh,
that sucks.
sober too.
That's the worst
But
part, right? You're
oh,
not even drunk enough to just stumble it off.
oh, the worst part is I'm a big nerd. I like to go metal detecting.
Yeah.
Okay, I was up metal detecting by myself on a day off. Tripped over a stone wall in the middle of the woods. I called like 15 people to come get me. They're like, I'm working, and hung up on me.
That's
So
funny.
I basically crawled back to my car. So,
That's funny.
no, it's not. Jerk.
Well, well, listen, I broke my left leg playing hockey. I had a spiral fracture, broken in three places, my tibia.
Pussy.
Um, that was one of the most excruciating things. I'll
Frank
mention it
Campbell skated
because
enough.
I was I think 13 at the time, something like
Okay.
that. I actually tried to
Different
get up,
story.
but dude, it was crazy. I tried to get up and I didn't know it was broken, and my leg just kept flopping. So it was
I,
the whole thing.
I broke my
Um,
ankle and my foot was backwards, and I was just like, hey, something's not right. So,
I'll ask you this before we kind of wrap things up here.
oh, I'm having
About
fun. Come on.
this is Wallstrom. Wallstrom's future here with the Bruins. Obviously, he's in RFA, and it didn't really work out for him this season with the Bruins.
Not his fault.
I think personally, I think there's more there with Wallstrom. I do. I think there could be a future here with him in Boston. I think being down in Providence and just getting confidence back up will be a big thing because the talent's there, the speed would be there. I think some of these guys are put a lot of pressure is put on them. You go down to Providence, you kind of build your game, build your confidence. Am I saying he's going to be an elite first line guy? Probably not, but I think there could be a path forward here for him to come back into the Bruins lineup at some point, whether it's next year or the year after that, if he decides to, work and stay in Boston.
Well, here's my thing. Hopefully, some of the guys from the group chat are in here. I They'll tell you I have a man crush, but Jesse Pugliarvi, I wanted
Yep.
him to be a Bruin so bad over the past couple of years because
Mm-hmm.
I figured they could fix him. I'm like that girlfriend. He's damaged. I can fix him. Yeah, well, there's no fixing him. But what I was getting at is that whole thing is he completely lost confidence
Yeah.
and just needed to get a reset. I'm hoping with Wallstrom being down in Providence for the rest of this year might reset his head.
Yeah.
Because so I think he's an all-star. No, not by any means. He'd be a decent third line guy, but he just doesn't seem confident. Kind of like Brazeau right now, because
Yeah.
he knows he's out the door, so he's just in panic mode all the time.
Yeah.
The past couple of games that he's been in, he's had open lanes to shoot, and he fumbled the puck.
Yeah. He's gripping the
So
stick too tight.
yeah, T Doyle overthinking what? I don't know, but so he the future. I don't know. It depends on how long of a leash they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what was he at, a million?
Yeah, he's a million. So like it's a cheap deal. Like and he didn't produce, so I don't think like the RFA like there's not much bargaining power or negotiating power to have. He would just get the raise, right? And I think it'd be worth retaining him personally. I don't think he has value anywhere else. I think he would have to kind of go into a training camp and compete somewhere. I think he's back home. I think if he can light it up in the AHL or at least be competent, I say just give it some time.
How old's he
Let the
now?
guy. Wallstrom is let
28.
me 24. He's
He's
turning
only He's only 24.
He is 24. He's turning 25 June 13th.
Yeah, I'd retain him then.
Yeah.
If he was 27, 28, I'd say no. But yeah, I'd retain him because you either flat out waive him and he's got to go to a PTO someplace, or it's. I feel bad for the kid because he's got plenty of talent.
Yeah.
But everybody expects that spinny Rama guy.
Yeah, shit. The kid, he was like, what, a kid at the time?
He was 9.
Yeah, like it's that'd be kind of a little much to ask. I mean, listen, I think he goes down in Providence. I mean, he has 2 goals in 2 games in Providence.
Yeah.
He's a point per game guy in Providence. He's 2 goals, 2 games. He's a +2. Let's say he goes down in the AHL and he keeps producing, and let's say he finishes the season with like double-digit goals and is effective down there. Like you, man, a lot of this game is mental.
Mm-hmm.
There is a physical difference with some guys, right? I'm not gonna say there's no difference between a first line and fourth line when it comes to physical traits and gifts, but the difference between a very good AHL player and like a third, fourth line NHL player, a lot of it is mental. Not every single case, but a lot of it's mental because it's a thinking game. And I think with Wahlstrom, you got to look at it in this situation, right? He gets acquired by his hometown team, from the Islanders when they waived him, and a team that the Islanders picked him in the first round. They thought the world of him. So while you're going back home, you did get waived from the team that drafted you, right? Like they gave up on you, right? And they exposed you to all 31 other teams in the NHL. The Bruins took a flyer. And then there's that additional pressure of like, oh, shoot, I got to be good for my hometown team. So I liked what I saw from him when he was in the lineup for the most part. There were some games he was at a little off games, but I liked the hustle. I think if he could have a little bit more confidence in his shot, I think there could be more offense there. And we've seen, just this season, right? Like Morgan Geekie, we saw him flourish, right? He's 26. Sometimes with these guys, it just takes a little bit. And it takes the right line combination. And I also think that kind of played into Wahlstrom. I don't think there was a perfect line combination that kind of fits with his style.
And being in one game, out the next, out for 2, in for 1, out for 3, didn't help him either.
Yeah, you can't build anything up, It definitely kind of plays a factor into it.
It's the reverse thing of Lindholm. He's maybe just not comfortable now.
Yeah. Toyle says, I hate trade season where black and gold or don't. Night. Oh, it's going tonight. All right, appreciate you popping in. Colorado needs to get Kadri. His cap hit is not that much, $4 million. If Kadri would kind of make sense. And TC says,
falling out.
They did. They had a weird falling out. It was like a weird situation.
He didn't end on good terms there.
No. But he could add something for them depending if they could patch it up, right?
Yeah.
And DC says, only cheer for the Bruins when they play the Maple Laughs. Jesus. That's funny. But yeah, I think Wahlstrom, there could be more there. I do. I believe that. And I'm happy there's 2 goals in 2 games. I'm hoping he just kills it. So, but before we get out of here, is there anything else you kind of want to touch upon before we go?
No.
No?
Did I mention something earlier?
No, not really. Honestly, I think we covered most of everything we wanted to on this show.
Okay, so what we've got here is we're getting rid of Carlo, Sweeney, Neely, Swayman, and who else?
Pasternak.
Got to get rid of Pasternak too. Okay, and then we're good.
Yeah, all for first round picks, and we're trading Corpusella for Connor McDavid. By the way,
he's a bum. Hey, do me a favor. Can you look up Connor Bedard's numbers real quick?
Sure. Connor.
I want to see if he's in a sophomore slump. I haven't been following him at all.
Celebrating's had a good year, but Bedard has 49 points in 61 games played. That's solid.
What you got for goals?
He has 16. Which that's
Okay.
kind of like he's having a slightly worse year than last year,
Yeah.
but this is
Now,
the one
now
thing.
look up Fantilli.
Oh, Fantilli, that's actually a good one, Adam.
Because in my opinion, he's going to be better all around as an all
Fantilli,
around hockey player.
38 points in 61 games played.
Nothing wrong.
So I think Fantilli probably two way. I think Bedard. If I'm gonna this probably will get some hot take. Um, I think Bedard would be better off as a wing. I don't. He doesn't win enough draws. I don't think defensively responsible enough, and maybe that can come with age. But with the center, it kind of allows you a little bit more puck control and work both sides of the ice. But I think overall, as a player, when it just comes to Bedard, I think he'd probably be better off as a winger. Just because of his body type and play style. But I think Chicago is probably just going to keep the center experiment going, and I think he'll be an all-star guy, like consistently. I just don't think he's going to be what people thought, like, oh, he's the next Connor McDavid. I don't think that.
No, and like I just said, I think Fantilli is a well-rounded player. Will end up being better.
I think Bedard will score more points than a guy like Fantilli, but as a two-way center, I would probably agree with you on that. I think that's fair to say.
Who's
I
better,
mean,
McDavid or Draisaitl?
McDavid.
Draisaitl.
I think McDavid because it's just the insane offensive gifts, and when McDavid has shown the ability to be good defensively when he wants to be. But that's the thing, when he wants to be.
But Draisaitl is when he doesn't want to be.
Fair. I actually and Igor, I'll say this: like Celebrini, he has 45 points in 51 games played. He's been absolutely brilliant, and I'm happy for the guy because I think I remember making a video on Celebrini, and people kind of gave me flack for it. I was like, I think Celebrini played tougher competition when he played in Hockey East than what Bedard
Absolutely.
played in juniors, and that's
Absolutely.
not crazy to say. I said Celebrini has played tougher competition, and I think he could come in and probably have a better season. And people laughed at me when I said that at the time, but I'm like, people forget like the Hockey East is like some premier hockey, like that's some really good hockey, and you're not playing other 16, 17, 18-year-olds, like you're playing 21, 22-year-olds, right? I mean, even some guys that play junior for 2 years and they're 23, 24 at the NCAA level.
Have you looked at the NCAA rankings?
Yeah, is Boston
Top 10 is New England.
That's funny.
I believe it's all New England teams.
Let me look right now. D1 hockey rankings. Let's see. It's Boston College I know is one. Michigan State, Minnesota, Western Michigan, then Maine, Providence, Denver, Connecticut, Ohio State, BU.
So
Yeah, I mean
a whole bunch of things change.
Yeah, but like
Stuff
you
changed
still
from
have
last week then.
but you have Holy Cross, huh? That's crazy. So in the top 25, one,
Is
two,
Union in
three,
there?
5, hold on a sec. 6, 7, 8, 9. In the top 20, you have 9 New England.
It's crazy.
That is great. Well, I mean, that's like Hockey East is some of the best hockey in NCAA by far.
Yeah.
And it's so like, yeah, I remember people giving me flack for that with the Celebrini take, where it was like, oh, like no, like Bedard played better competition in juniors. I'm like, and this is not to slight juniors. I mean, very good hockey in its own right, but you're playing actual young men in college hockey. So, and yes, everyone does hate Toronto DEG. Yes, like that's a fact. Everybody hates Toronto. That's kind of a running gag in the NHL.
Yeah, just because they're arrogant turds.
And they've never won anything. Just being honest. Like some of the fan base, some of the Toronto fan bases can be insufferable, and they've never won anything. Like the Yankee fans, right? And this is baseball, but Yankee fans I can understand because like, okay, yeah, they won all these championships. Like, but Toronto fans, like, you've won nothing. Like Silencio, please. It's 67, 0 rings.
Even the transplants from Toronto to Alberta hate them.
DC said everyone here in Alberta does, even the people that move here from Toronto. There's lots of them. Any mechanic here will tell you they were done dealing with vehicles from Ontario. My neighbor is a mechanic. That's funny. And DC has the worst fan base ever. That's Toronto has the worst fan base.
I don't know about that.
I think they can be
Philly?
insufferable. That's actually.
It is a bad fan base.
Listen, Philly is like.
Evil.
I mean, did you see what they did with the NCAA? I mean, not the Jesus Christ, Paul. The Super Bowl when they won. Like, oh my God, it was.
Imagine being in Vancouver
crazy.
terrorizing your city when you lost. You riot when you win. You don't do it when you lose.
I know it was absolutely bonkers. But I'm gonna kind of wrap it up here. I probably gotta get up in the morning, but I appreciate you there, Hayden, coming on here. We definitely gotta do more of this. I was working a lot, so we should definitely do. If something other major comes on, we should definitely do another Bruins related video.
We shall do that.
Before getting out of here, if you're watching now, if you could hit that like button, comment, subscribe if you're not already. The like actually helps me in the algorithm, kind of bumps it up. And
Helps me too.
yes, it helps Hayden immensely, actually. So appreciate everybody that kind of popped through. And I guess we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, folks.